I realized that brand is about to matter more than it ever has. Not that it didn't before. And I hate talking about it, but it's kind of unavoidable, especially in my space, but because of AI. And my thinking is this: the space between an idea and execution is just disappearing. It's shrinking. It's gone. It's basically gone. Used to be that you'd have a vision for how your business should feel, and then it would filter through layers of management, get reinterpreted, watered down, lost in translation. And by the time it reaches the customer at the touch point where your businesses actually interacts and that value is delivered, it barely resembles what you intended. And it was difficult to do because that's how brand ended up being this wonderful idea about what your business stood for and how it does business, to a logo, a color palette, and a tone of voice document. They're tangible things. They're a proxy for what a brand actually is, because it's a difficult concept to kind of articulate. But AI absolutely changes that, because when you can configure an AI to interact with your customers, whatever you put in is what they get. There's no middle management filter. There's no interpretation, that's not quite what we meant. And I think this is the part that most people are actually missing, because we're having these visions of like, we implemented AI for customer service and it sucked because it didn't really know what the customer wanted. That's because you didn't brief the AI properly. You've got to instruct it correctly. You've got to have a way of articulating your brand values and evaluating how the AI responds in context of those brand values. It's not because the AI can't do it. AI will absorb feedback. It'll reflect your values faster and more accurately than people ever could. You can update a behavioral rule and every customer interaction will change immediately, every single one. But that only works if you actually know, one, what your values are, and two, if you know how to articulate them. This is why I'm thinking like brand architects. Because it got me thinking what this means for brand specialists. Because a lot of traditional brand work is, one, about articulating the vision, but two, it's about creating the right conditions for people to behave on brand. You can't just tell someone to like be a brand, be our brand, be that. You can't tell someone to be nicer, because it takes time for people to change their behavior and adapt new habits. Which is why culture is really important, which is why they always say in running a business, it's about who you hire. And so when you're going through brand change or cultural change for an organization, you're designing the environment, the workplace culture, your guiding rules, the scripts, the training. You're basically creating situations where people are most likely to behave in the way you want them to. Because it's very difficult to tell people what to do and have them do it. But when you're dealing with an AI, you absolutely can. You don't need to do those tricks. You don't need to worry about creating conditions and doing trust exercises so people feel that thing you're trying to get them to feel. You just say it, and the AI then just does it consistently every time. And it's just only going to get better at it. So does this mean that brand specialists now need to operate more like software engineers? Because they need to specify behavior instead of inspiring it? And also, does that mean that software engineers need to also move in the opposite direction? They're no longer writing code. We don't need to write code anymore. They're writing prompts or whatever. You're like writing skills. But we're in a place where we can describe intent. And we can start thinking about tone and context and how something should feel. And so you've got brand people needing to think more like engineers, and engineers needing to think more like brand architects. I mean, it kind of gives a whole, we've got context engineering, we've got prompt engineering. Maybe actually when it comes to implementing this sort of technology it's the new phrase brand engineering. This is where it lives. This is your moment to shine. This is our moment to shine. Engineers and brand guys unite. I don't know. It was just a thought. But I think there's something there worth discussing further. Good luck.